Hi all, Brian S. Pratt here. I'm going to read another chapter of the Broken Key Trilogy. This is chapter 8 from Shepherd's Quest. We're going to be doing commentary, probably have some spoilers, get some insights into why I do what I do, and just random thoughts too, I suppose. For those who read yesterday's, you know that my mom went to the ER. She's doing fine today. She's using a walker right now, a little bit here and there. At first she was using it a lot, but now she's using it less and less, so I think she's getting back to her old self. I think she was just low on fluids and, just the whole ordeal and being over 80. So, thank you for all the well wishes out there. I appreciate that. And she's getting back to it. It's raining today, storming, thunderstorms all day, so that'll be fun. And yesterday, or last night before I went to bed, I look out my front door and there's the yard light. Here in rural Oklahoma, we all have yard lights. Well, under the yard light, rooting through the grass, were two raccoons. One of them was a golden raccoon. Rather than having the dark and gray mix of colors, this one's yellow. We got one of those. There might be others around here, but yeah, I made a video of it, and you can find it over on my TikTok. I'll post that later today. Okay, so here goes chapter 8. Now, a recap. They spent, Chad, Ryan, and Bart are out in the wilderness. They've gone into the subterranean area. They have located treasure. They're starting to get coins. Bart, being the thief of the group, has got lockpicks. He's been disarming traps, and in the last chapter, I talked about traps and trap chests, and given a little behind the scenes on that, and a little bit of explanation from Bart's point of view about disarming traps, knowing what traps are, and so forth. They've uncovered two types of traps. One was the prick of poison that causes a dart to come out. You're trying to pick it, and the dart comes out, sticks you, and kills you. And then the other one is an acid spray. I use those a lot when I was dungeon mastering. That's probably why they're in here now. And Bart has knowledgeable about disarming these, so he's got a pass in this realm. So, and we've learned more about his father. Apparently, he's a thief. And I think that's about it. Chad's hoping to find enough treasure to get a new grinding stone for his father and reconcile with him. And Ryan, of course, he wants to get enough coins and gold to sway Freya's father into breaking off the betrothal with Rupert in favor of him. Because if he's rich, then there's really no reason why Freya can't be with him anymore. Because that's the whole reason that Freya's father talked about why he went with Rupert, because he could provide for her and she would never want. I mean, she'll want for love and happiness and everything else, but the coins will always be there. And that's apparently what all Freya's father really cares about. So, so here's chapter 8. And we'll get into it. The clinking of coins woke Chad the following morning. He turned over to find Ryan stacking his share of the coins on the ground in front of him. Chad sat up and groaned, "Not again." Ryan glanced over to his friend and grinned. "I can't help it. You must have counted them 10 times last night before we went to sleep." "Sorry," Ryan said. "I just like to look at them." The morning dawned, a beautiful day, with just a hint of clouds forming a wreath that circled the mountain peaks. Chad looked around and asked, "Where did Bart go?" Ryan nodded toward the stream. "He went that way," he explained. "Said we'd be back shortly." Now that Chad was up, Ryan put his coins away and they got breakfast going. Soon, the odor of bacon and aroma. Yeah. Aroma tends to be a more positive word than odor. Odor tends to be what girlfriends complain about their boyfriends. I know mine does. I think she really feels I need to, like, instead of just swipe on my armpit, Like take a knife and cut off a wedge and stick the wedge under there. I think they'd be happy with that one. Bart walked alongside the water, simply enjoying the quiet of the hills. When he first came to Quillim, it was more out of need than desire. Having lived all his life in the city, it had been hard for him to adjust to the openness of the country. But it didn't take long before he grew to cherish it. Oh, sure, he still longed for the city, the hustle, bustle, and constant noise. Even late at night, there was always something dispelling the quiet. It was home. When he accompanied Chad to Fender's, it had reawakened his longing for the streets. He just wished that he could go back. Which, foreshadows book 2, and gives you more of an insight into Bart. As a writer, you do that. You drop these little things here and there, an offhand remark here, comment in another spot that readers may or may not pick up on. Like in the Morsai set, or Travilla Dark Maids. I've dropped hints in there that no one has yet picked up on. Yeah. So, or at least they haven't mentioned it to me. But when the next book comes out of that one, then the hints will become realized, and they'll know what I'm talking about. But no one's picked up on it, or no one's mentioned it. Okay. Their camp was situated near the opening, or their camp wasn't situated near the opening to the underground area. Instead, they had crossed the stream and camped 100 yards away. Not having their camping gear near the entrance was Ryan's idea. He didn't want someone to stumble upon their camp and then discover the entrance, at least not until they were through exploring it for themselves. Once they finished breakfast, they brought their equipment with them to the underground area. "Wish we could block this off somehow," Chad said as he worked his way down to the passage below. "I know what you mean," replied Ryan. None of them wished for a repeat of the incident with the bear. Probably not, and also that they don't want anyone want. But who'd be wandering in that area? It's pretty much out in the middle of nowhere, so it's unlikely someone's just going to wander by and say, "Oh yeah, let's go explore this hole in the ground." "Don't know how we could," added Bart as he entered the hole in the ground and slid down. Ryan already had one of Ryan's lanterns lit and was looking down the left-hand passage where they had yet to explore. I hope we find something interesting today," he said. "Me too," agreed Chad. He then took off all his equipment and bedroll and laid them on the passage floor. "I am not going to haul this around again today." Hang on. One quick thing. There you go. The others removed their equipment as well. All each of them took with them were their packs, which they slung across their shoulders. Bart also brought the other lantern just in case. None of them wished to be down there without a light in the event something happened to their other one. "All ready?" Ryan asked with renewed excitement. "You bet," Chad replied. Bart nodded. Setting out, Ryan took the lead and moved down the passage, this time in the opposite direction of where they explored yesterday. He hadn't gone far before another curving narrow passage branched off to the right. Without hesitation, he entered the passage. It continued to curve back to the right until it was running parallel to the main passage. The narrow passage went straight for a few more feet before ending at an entryway to another crypt holding a sarcophagus. Now, standard Dungeons & Dragons role-playing methodology for characters is you have the thief lead, right? Because they're more likely to look for traps or discover traps that might be lying about. But this being the first level, and Ryan and Chad being level 0, I just didn't do that. Bart's more experienced, but he's used to city life. He's not used to that necessarily underground, so he might be like a level 5 or 6 thief in the city life, but underground he might just be level 1 or 2 because it's a whole different thing. He's got some experience, but not in that area. So yeah, we'll do it that way. We'll just say that for right now. "Okay, just like the other one," observed Chad. Ryan nodded and entered the crypt. A quick search turned up nothing, so they left the room and returned through the curving passage back to the main passage. Then they turned to the right and continued down for a ways before coming to another T-junction. He glanced down to the left and right, but didn't see any difference between them. Riyan decided to take the left passage and moved into it. It didn't go far before arriving at yet another T-junction. To the right and left, narrow passages branched off just like the ones discovered the previous day. They explored them and turned up 2 more rooms with the stone byres within the walls on either end. The chest below the byres contained a sum total of 15 of the coins and another small gem. Once finished with searching the 2 rooms, they returned to the main passage, and this time took the right at the T. This place seems to be laid out according to a pattern, observed Bart. The byre rooms are in pairs, while the rooms with the sarcophagi are by themselves, with a curved passage connecting them to the main passage. That's been true so far, agreed Chad. Now, I think I mentioned this in the previous read, I tried to make this a little bit confusing because I wanted it to feel like, they could get lost in it at any moment. And writing it was hard, trying to get it to where it made sense, the reader wouldn't get too lost and confused, and I hope I didn't make it too confusing for people, but yeah. Continuing down the passage, they came to where another main passage connected to theirs on the left. When Riyan shined the light down it, the light revealed the ceiling of the passage had caved in. That didn't happen too long ago, Riyan told the others. The dirt's still fresh. Could have happened during the earthquake, suggested Chad. Nodding, Riyan glanced at him. I was thinking the same thing. Wonder what was down there, Bart asked. We should have thought to bring a shovel. If we come back here another time, let's remember to bring one, said Chad. Riyan nodded and turned back to the main passage and continued on. 20 feet or so after they left the blocked passage behind, they came to a flight of steps descending into darkness on their right. All right, exclaimed Riyan when the lantern's light revealed the steps. He started moving into them when Bart said, let's finish up here first. Riyan turned to him and was about ready to argue the point. For in all the sagas he's ever heard that told of... Okay, hang on. I got present tense mixed in with past. So. That told of treasures, hunters. The deeper one, for in all the sagas he'd ever heard that told of treasure hunters, the deeper one went, the better the treasure became. But then he realized there was no point in hurrying it along and nodded. Okay. They spent the better part of a half hour finishing the exploration of this level. 2 cribs holding sarcophagi and 6 byre rooms later, they returned to the stairs leading down. 2 of the chests in the byre rooms had the pricks of poison trap, which Bart readily disarmed. He told them that once you know what's there, it's pretty simple to take care of it. Riyan had his doubts about that, but trusted in Bart's skill. Their packs were now 53 coins and 3 gems heavier than when they finished searching this level. At least one of the gems was slightly larger than the others that they found and should bring more coins. Riyan took the lead again as they proceeded to the next level. They descended 20 steps before ending at a passageway, moving to the right and left. There, the stonework was of much better quality. The walls of the passage looked as if more care had been put into their construction than what they saw up above. Also, sconces that once must have held torches were spaced along the walls at 10-foot intervals. Looks like we've entered a better area, Riyan said. Or it was built later than the one above, added Chad. When Riyan glanced back at them, they could see the grin that had spread across Ryan's face. They also noticed how his eyes were practically dancing in anticipation. Relax, Bart told him. The last thing we need to do is get in a hurry in a place like this. I'll try, he said, but the tone of his voice belied the statement. Moving down to the right, they followed the passage until it turned abruptly to the left. Not far past the corner, another passage, slightly smaller than the main one, they were in, branched off to the right. Riyan shined the light down the new passage and saw at the end of the light how it opened up onto another room. May have something here, he said, and moved forward. The room at the end was rectangular in shape, stretching to the right and left. 2 large tapestries that hadn't survived the passage of time well hung upon the walls. The fabric had deteriorated so badly that whatever they had at one time depicted was no longer discernible. In the center of the room, 2 stone biers sat 6 feet apart. Lying upon each were the skeletal remains of warriors. The skulls were encased in helms and armor, were encased in helms. Comma there. And armor covered the rest of the body. Their hands gripped the hilts of swords that lay upon their breasts. Bart entered the room and moved to the skeleton on the right and briefly examined its sword. The blade showed extensive damage by rust, as did the armor. "No chest here," said Riyan unhappily. "That's true," said Bart. Then he had Riyan follow him with the lantern as he closely examined the biers upon which the dead lay. However, there are other means by which people store their valuables in simple wooden chests. The biers were more than just simple blocks. Let's see. Yeah, these biers. I had the biers, but I said these biers were more than just simple blocks of stones. They were carved with figures locked in battle. As Bart ran his fingers across one of the figures, he felt it shift slightly under his touch. "Aha!" he exclaimed. "What?" asked Riyan as he moved closer to see. "May have found something," he explained. "Back off a little and give me some room." "Sorry," Riyan said, and then back to the foot. Chad came over and stood beside him as they watched Bart feel around the figure. Bart was certain that if he pressed the figure, it would release a catch holding open a secret compartment. But he also remembered his father telling him how in situations such as he now found himself, devices like this were invariably trapped. The problem was that he didn't know how to disarm it. He stood up and turned around to Riyan. "I wish you would have brought your staff down here with you." It currently sat up on the upper level with all their other equipment. "Why?" he asked. "I think I found how to open a compartment," he explained, "but it may be trapped. If I had your staff, I could do it from a distance." "No problem there," Riyan told him. "I'll just run up and get it." "All right," Bart nodded. As he turned to leave, Chad grabbed his arm and said, "Hurry." He grinned at his friend and said, "I will." Then he turned from the main room and took the lantern with him. In short order, Bart and Chad were left in the dark. Okay. Upon reading this, it occurs to me that they originally brought 2 lanterns down. Bart took one, Riyan took one with him to go get his staff. Obviously, he had to see his way. So what? Bart and Chad just sat there in the dark with an unlit lantern? That's just dumb, right? It doesn't follow. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know why I wrote that in the first place. Probably I forgot that they brought 2 lanterns down. So I am going to remove that part because they have another lantern. So we're going to assume that it was lit. I'm not going to specify that, but if anyone argues with me, I'll just say, well, they had 2 lanterns. Wouldn't they have lit in it? Well, you didn't say it. Okay, I didn't say it. I once read somewhere that authors should leave something in their books that people can argue about, because it creates conversation, it creates interest, it creates an opportunity for others to discover their books. Now, obviously, you don't want to do it too often, and you don't want to do it so it makes you look like an idiot, or makes your book feel like it's just totally out there. But every once in a while, I don't really do it intentionally, but if I come across on something that can spark a dialogue, and it's not too obvious or anything, I might leave it in there. I mean, there's a big one in this series, but I'm not gonna touch on it right now. Okay. They waited for what seemed like hours, and when Chad began to express worry about what may have happened to him, the passage leading to the crypt began to lighten. Soon, Riyan rejoined them with staff in hand. "I'll be sure to keep this with me from now on," he told the others as he handed it to Bart. Bart took the staff and said, "It might be safer if you 2 waited out in the passage. Leave the lantern on the ground." Riyan set the lantern near Bart, then he and Chad left the room. They came to a stop several feet from the entryway, just far enough out of the room to still be able to see what happened. Once Bart saw that they were safely out of the room, he too stepped back as far as he could and still be able to place the end of the staff on the figure. Then he lifted the staff and held it at arm's reach. He positioned himself a little to one side as he moved the end of the staff to rest against the figure. Holding his breath, he depressed the figure with the end of the staff. No sooner had the figure been depressed than a liquid squirted out from two different places on either side. The liquid shot out and landed a good feet. The liquid shot out and landed a good 2 feet from the buyer. When the liquid hit the stone floor, it began to eat away at it. When I was dungeon mastering, of course, keep in mind this was early years of Dungeons and Dragons. I never gave thought to how, thieves unlock chests, right? I never thought about it. We just said they unlocked it, rolled the dice, and they did or they didn't. But I guess when I'm writing a book, I need to be a little more specific about it. Bart turned back to the others and said, "Acid. If you had pressed that with your finger, it would have hit you," Ryan said as he moved back into the room. Now, would acid have lasted hundreds and hundreds of years? Would it remain acid after that long? Not being a chemical engineer, I don't know. I'm sure someone at some point will comment about it. But would it remain its potency after so long? I don't know. I don't care. Handing him back his staff, Bart replied, "That was the whole idea of the trap, I'm sure." He glanced to the stone where the liquid had landed and saw that the corrosiveness of the acid had eaten away almost a quarter inch of the stone's surface before its potency fizzled out. He thought to himself, that would have hurt. Turning his attention back to the buyer, he noticed that over a foot-long section of its side had popped out a little. Moving closer, he took hold of the edge and pulled the piece of stone. As it turned out, it was a long drawer filled with the deceased's belongings. "That is cool," Chad said as Bart pulled the drawer out. It finally came to a stop when it was 2 feet out and no amount of pulling was budged further. Making sure not to step in the acid on the floor, Chad and Ryan moved closer to see what was inside. Within the drawer lay a weapon wrapped in cloth. The cloth lay in tatters, and when they unwrapped the dagger that was inside, found the blade to be brittle. Another sack lay alongside the dagger. Within they found 20 other coins, plus 5 coins of another type. These were slightly larger and silver in color. "Are those silver coins?" asked Chad. Ryan picked one up. "Looks like it," he replied, "but they're heavier than what we use now." Bart took one of the silver coins and nodded. "I'd say it's about 1.5 times the weight of the coins in use today." The design on the two sides of the silver coins matched what was on the copper coins. They removed the coins and left the dagger. Then Bart moved on to the other buyer in the room. A quick search located another movable figure. Using the same strategy. How about employing the same strategy? I like that better. I could read this 20 times, and every time I will change something. There comes a time when you just got to say, enough. It's good. It's good enough. I'm not professional. I do the best I can, and I guess for the most part, people enjoy what I write. So I'll do the best I can. Again, a spurt of acid and a similar drawer popped open. Within, they found a set of daggers and what may have been a book, but time had destroyed them beyond use. When Ryan touched the book, its pages cracked and disintegrated under the touch. The drawer wasn't without treasure, as they found another 10 silvers and 30 coppers. There was also a gold necklace nestled in among the coins. Now, reading this again, I'm thinking a pair of daggers. Could that be Jerome? Yeah, what if this was actually 5,000 years after James, It's not, okay? That just came to me. Don't even go there. Don't start getting these conspiracy theories about how I'm trying to. No, it's not going to happen. Ryan held up the necklace and showed it to Bart. "Think this is worth anything?" he asked. "If it's real gold, yes," he replied. "Don't know why it wouldn't be," Ryan said as he put it in his pack. Once their booty was stowed away, they left the room and continued down the passage to the right. 50 feet farther down, they came to a larger entryway on their left. When they reached it, the light revealed a much larger room than any they've come across so far. The room was quite large. 3 columns were spaced evenly down the center, moving from the entryway where Riyan and the others stood to another entryway in the wall directly across the room from them on the far side. To the left and right of the column sat 3 stone biers, 6 altogether. They were identical to those that had been in the previous room they found on this level, except that the armor the dead were wearing was slightly different. These 2 were ravaged by rust. "This must be someplace special," said Chad. "It would seem so," agreed Bart. The walls of the room bore carvings of men in battle from one end to the other. Riyan took a closer look and saw that what the men were fighting wasn't entirely human. "Look at this," he said to the other 2. That got me to the paragraph. Bart and Chad came to stand with him as he pointed out the creatures the men fought. They were roughly the same size and shape as the fighters, bipedal humanoids, but that's where the similarity ended. Their faces were bestial, small horns sprouted from their foreheads, and a long, scaly tail touched the ground behind them. "Ever seen anything like this before?" Riyan asked. "No," admitted Bart, "but burial chambers such as these often have murals and such depicting the dead in a heroic and favorable light." Chad nodded. Bart then set about trying to find the hidden cast that would open each of the drawers in the 6 biers. The first one he tried the staff trick again to... The first one, he tried using... A second, something doesn't feel right. He tried the staff trick again to open it. I'm thinking he utilized the staff. He utilized the staff trick again. No, I gotta change. All right. The first one, he again utilized the staff trick to open it. Oh, that sounds much better. Only this time when he depressed the figure with the staff, nothing happened other than the drawer popped open a little bit. No liquid this time. Riyan moved forward and said, "Guess it was broken." He reached the drawer and gripped the part that was protruding. Just as he began to pull it open, Bart yelled, "Stop!" But his warning came too late. No sooner had the cavity within the drawer cleared the side of the bier than a dart flew out and struck Riyan in the arm. "Damn," he cursed as the other hand quickly moved to remove the dart. He cried out when the dart came free, for its head had 2 nasty barbs that ripped his flesh as he pulled it out. "Flush it with water, quickly," Bart yelled. Chad removed his water flask and upended it over the wound. He emptied its entire contents as he washed the blood away. A tearing sound drew his attention, and he turned to see Bart tearing off a piece of cloth to use it as a bandage. "It's not that bad," Riyan said through gritted teeth. "I'll live." Bart wrapped the cloth around the wound and tied it off. "It's not the wound itself that concerns me," he said. "It's what may have been on the dart that has me worried." "You mean poison?" asked Chad. Bart nodded. "That's usually what you'll find on a dart in circumstances like this." Riyan turned fearful eyes to him and asked, "Am I going to die?" "I don't know," he replied. "How do you feel?" He took a moment to see if he felt the poison taking effect, then said, "I don't feel any different." "You could be lucky in that the potency of the poison has deteriorated over the years," he said. "If you start feeling nauseous or dizzy, let us know right away." "You got it," he said. Then Bart glanced at both of them and said, "From now on, no one opens anything until I say it's okay." Both Chad and Riyan nodded affirmatively. Then Bart set about searching the remaining 5 biers while the other 2 examined the contents of the drawer they just opened. More rusted weapons and a few coins, 3 of the silver and 10 of the copper. "You know," commented Chad, "it just seems odd to me that soldiers for whom someone took such care to build this place for and were laid out so respectfully will have so little in the way of valuables." When Riyan glanced at him, he gestured to the skeletal remains of the man in armor atop the bier. "I mean, wouldn't you think this guy here would have had more than a couple weapons and a modest number of coins?" Riyan shrugged. "Maybe it was their custom. Or perhaps their family only gave them what they felt obligated to and then saved the rest for themselves." Chad grinned and nodded. "I'd probably do the same." "Ah!" Bart's cry drew their attention, and they looked over at the next bier just in time to see him jump back out of the way of an acid spray. "What happened?" Riyan said. Riyan asked, not said. Some people are anal about that. If there's a question, you say ask. You don't say said. But that's okay. I think ask sounds better too. I got sloppy, Bart said. I forgot that when there are many types of the same types of traps in the same place, they are often said to go off differently to foil thieves. He pointed to the buyer he was working on. That one had the spray come out at a little different angle and almost got me. Now I did that as a dungeon master. You know, if I put certain traps in chests in a dungeon, eventually, if the thief always did it the same way, never altered how he said things, he would regret it because he needs to adapt to the situation. And yeah, especially if it's someone who's been playing with me for a while. If it was a new guy, I cut him some slack. But if it was a long time person, like in James's case, Dave. If Dave did something sloppy, James would take out his character no problem. You're okay though? Asked Chad. Bart nodded yes. He indicated the buyer from which the ash had spurted. That one's safe now. You can go through it while I finish the rest of them. So that's what they did. While Bart would work on one, Chad and Ryan would go through the ones he already opened. When they were at last done with the room, Bart had managed to again narrowly avoiding another acid spray as well as 2 more pricks of poison. The drawers of the remaining 5 had contributed 65 more of the copper, 13 of the silver, and 5 small gems to their bulging packs. Chad patted his pack and said, "We must have a fortune by now." Bart grinned at his enthusiasm. "Actually, I figure we have a little over 3 golds worth, not counting the gems and the necklace," he corrected. Holding up his bulging pack, he said, "How can this be worth so little?" "It's copper coins," Bart replied. "It takes a lot to make a gold. Of course, the age of the coins could bring more value if we only knew the right person to talk to." I kind of think Chad would know that, know how that works, It'd be like someone today holding up a big bag of pennies and nickels and thinking, "I'm rich." But I like the dialogue. It helps explain things. "Why would we want to get rid of this stuff?" Ryan asked. Bart removed one of the coins and held it up. "Anyone who sees this coin is going to wonder where you got it." I did say got it from, but I'm getting rid of from, he replied. "And in case you didn't already know, Duke Alaric has made it law that he gets 20% of any treasure recovered in his dukedom. Something like this would be considered recovered treasure, I'm afraid." "You're kidding," Bart said. Shaking his head, Bart replied, "No, I'm not. In fact, if you're found guilty of finding treasure without returning over his share, it's considered thieving." "Great," said Ryan. The plans that had been going through his mind as to what to do with the treasure all of a sudden went up in smoke. "Don't worry," Bart replied. A quick trick to Wardine, and we'll get this exchanged for regular coins that won't raise as much suspicion." "How much will the fence will take for doing this?" asked Ryan. "He takes 10%. Bart looked at both of them and shrugged. 10%, 20, or take the chance of standing before the Duke's court on charges of thievery. It's your choice." Ryan's mood hardly improved, but he could see the wisdom of what Bart said. "Well, 10% is still better than having one's hand cut off," which was what the penalty for thieving happened to be. Chad slapped him on the back and grinned. "What price adventure?" he asked. Then Ryan nodded as a grin spread across his face, too. "No point in getting mad," he said. "There's treasure to be found." When they were ready to leave the room, they had a choice before them. They could either return out the way they came in and continue searching from there, or they could leave by the entryway on the opposite side. After a second of deliberation, they chose to return the way they entered. That way they wouldn't miss anything or take the chance of becoming turned around. So back out to where they continued, following the passage to the left. A short ways farther down, they encountered another room on the right holding 2 buyers. Bart was quick to disarm the traps or trigger them safely as the case warranted. They acquired another 27 copper coins and 5 silver. As they left the room and continued down the passage, Ryan got to thinking that the coins he had in his pack represented more money than he and his mother could expect to make in a year or 2 with the sheep. He felt better about things when he came to that realization and was more able to enjoy the adventure. Once back out in the passage, they followed it a little farther until it turned to the left. From there, it went down a ways past 2 larger rooms on the right. Each of the rooms contained 3 buyers. They were quick to loot the coins and gems within the drawers of the 6 spires before continuing on. Then they followed the passage until it turned back to the left once more. After the turn, they found 2 more 2-bier rooms on the right, and the opening to the large room with the 6 spires and 3 columns they had went through earlier on their left. Once they went through the 2 bier rooms, they continued down the passage until it turned once more to the left. The main passage had formed a square with 6 bier rooms that had the 3 columns running through it at its center. After they rounded the 4th corner of the square, they came across another set of stairs descending into darkness. "What do you say we go up and have lunch before we see what's down there?" suggested Chad. Then in the silence, the others heard his stomach give out with a loud growl. "Good idea," agreed Riyan. "We all could use a bite to eat and some fresh air." They headed back up to the uppermost level and gathered what they would need for lunch. Then they went topside and cleared the mustiness from their lungs with the fresh summer air while they ate. And that ends chapter 8. So I've often thought about this last little bit where they go back up and have lunch. Well, that is where their food is, but they could have brought some food down with them, and they probably should have. But they're new to this, and the air down there can't be too good. So getting out in the sunshine and just escaping it. And I thought about maybe making one of them claustrophobic, but you can't add too much stuff to something like this. So we got these guys exploring this new area. They're finding treasure, having adventure, and they're discovering that there's consequences to what they do, like when the dart hit Riyan. I mean, that could have ended him right there. It could have ended this very, very quickly. But like in a previous chapter, Bart was talking about how poisons lose their potency over time, while some get stronger. So in this instant, the potency diminished to nothing. So, which was fortunate for Riyan. Will they do that in actuality? I have no idea. I'm not a chemical engineer. I'm not a herbologist or anything like that. Makes a good story, so that's the way I tell it. Gotta give a little bit of leeway when you read someone's stories, because they're doing the best they can, and they're not an expert on everything. And I get dinged a lot from people who are experts in one specific little area that I am not, and they complain at me. Well, that's fine. They can complain at me. Creates dialogue, gets people interested in talking about the story. So that's fine too. It's raining right now. I think that's it. You all have a good day. And I'll be back tomorrow. Ooh, today's Cinco de Mayo. Right, today's Cinco de Mayo. It's Sunday. So we have church here at the house on Sundays. What that means is at 10 o'clock, my mom plays the piano. Me and my son come out to the living room, and we just sit there and sing a song or two. And then I read from the Bible, one chapter. I think we're in Luke now. And then pray, and that's it. And usually at 11:30 she cooks dinner. But seeing how it's Cinco de Mayo, and she's still not back to 100%, and Joseph and I we want tacos or Mexican. Actually, we're gonna go split a fajita downtown today. We're gonna drive into Hugo and have a fajita. And yeah. And then we'll have that way mom can rest. She won't have to cook and have another day of rest. She should be a lot better today. Cinco de Mayo, Mexico's Independence Day, which as an American really shouldn't matter, but any chance to celebrate and have tacos, right? I love tacos. Especially homemade tacos to me are way better than any taco I can get out in at a restaurant. And me and my boy, we go through chips like a wood chipper. My girlfriend gets mad at me because like, don't eat so fast. Are you even tasting your food? Apparently, I eat really fast. I always have. But I tell her I don't eat fast. I eat efficiently. She's over there on the phone talking and conversation, and I'm going chip, 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 chip until they're gone. I guess maybe that comes from having an older brother. Anyway, you all enjoy your Cinco de Mayo, and I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.